Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of today. I'm your host, Sharifa Muhammad MGT.
I'm Colonel AUC Oguntoye, an infantry officer. Over the past 24 hours, Russian armed forces conducted a large-scale precision strike campaign in response to Ukrainian attacks on civilian infrastructure within Russia. Using long-range sea and air-launched systems, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles, Russian forces targeted energy and transport infrastructure supporting Ukrainian military operations, as well as military-industrial enterprises involved in UAV production and associated storage and launch preparation sites. All designated targets were struck, achieving stated operational objectives. Concurrently, ground forces across all operational groupings advanced positions, inflicted personnel and materiel losses, and degraded Ukrainian sustainment and command resilience.
Colonel, today's briefing opens with a massive precision strike involving hypersonic Kinzhal missiles, long-range aviation, and UAVs, followed immediately by coordinated ground actions across every sector. At the strategic level, how should listeners understand what February 7th represents?
February 7th represents synchronization at scale. What distinguishes today's operations is not simply the employment of advanced weapons, but the timing and purpose behind them. The long-range strikes against energy systems, transport infrastructure, and UAV production sites were not isolated punitive actions. They were designed to shape the operational environment before, during, and after ground maneuver. From a doctrinal standpoint, this reflects a campaign that prioritizes endurance over spectacle. By targeting infrastructure that supports military mobility and unmanned systems, you are not just degrading today's battlefield performance, you are constraining tomorrow's options. When those strikes are paired with immediate pressure along the front, the defender is forced to fight while already experiencing systemic disruption. What we are seeing is a deliberate effort to collapse operational depth, not to break the front in one dramatic motion, but to make sustained defense brittle.
Let's move to the northern sector. Russian forces established control over Chugunovka and engaged Ukrainian formations across both Kharkiv and Sumy regions. What stands out to you here?
The northern sector is functioning as both a maneuver front and a fixation front. Establishing control over Chugunovka is tactically important, but operationally it serves a larger purpose. It forces Ukrainian command to treat the north as an active threat rather than a secondary concern. What is particularly telling is the composition of Ukrainian forces engaged. Mechanized brigades, motorized infantry, airmobile elements, assault regiments, border units, and territorial defense formations are all being committed within the same operational window. That diversity signals strain. When units with very different readiness levels and sustainment requirements are fighting side by side, it usually means reserves are being fed into the line reactively. The destruction of ammunition and material depots reinforces this interpretation. Northern operations are not only about ground gained, they are about denying the defender the logistical foundation required to stabilize the sector over time.
Turning west, the briefing emphasizes the occupation of more advantageous lines and the destruction of 5 ammunition depots. How should we interpret Western operations today?
The western sector is about positional pressure rather than dramatic movement. Occupying better lines and positions may sound incremental, but it has cumulative effects. It improves observation, shortens supply routes, and forces the enemy to defend from less favorable terrain. The repeated destruction of ammunition depots is the key indicator. This is a deliberate logistics denial effort. You are not simply degrading frontline units, you are degrading the system that keeps them fighting. Over time, this translates into reduced artillery fires, delayed repairs, and fewer opportunities for counteraction.
Colonel, let's shift south. Today's briefing notes that Russian forces improved their position along the front line and engaged Ukrainian units around Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, and several surrounding settlements. What does improving position mean in operational terms here?
In the southern sector, improving position is a loaded phrase. It rarely means dramatic territorial expansion. Instead, it reflects incremental gains that alter the geometry of the fight. Better positions mean improved observation, more secure logistics routes, and the ability to apply fires with greater precision and survivability. Over time, these positional advantages accumulate into operational leverage. What is particularly important in today's southern operations is the mix of effects achieved. Ukrainian mechanized, motorized infantry, and assault brigades were not only engaged, but their enabling systems were targeted. The destruction of an electronic warfare station alongside ammunition and material depots matters as much as the loss of armor or personnel. When electronic warfare assets are removed, artillery becomes more exposed, UAV coordination weakens, and command and control reliability degrades.
The southern sector includes major urban industrial areas. How does that shape operational decision-making?
Urban industrial zones impose constraints on both sides. For the defender, they offer cover and infrastructure, but they also demand sustainment at scale. For the attacker, progress must be methodical to avoid overextension. By improving positions rather than forcing rapid advances, Russian forces are shaping the battle space in a way that steadily increases pressure without incurring unnecessary risk. The southern sector is about exhausting the defender's ability to hold complex terrain over time, not about racing through it.
The central sector again reports engagement with a broad range of Ukrainian formations: mechanized, ranger, airborne assault, marine, and National Guard units, and the destruction of a Grad multiple launch rocket system. Why does the center remain so consistently intense?
Because the center functions as the operational backbone of the Ukrainian defensive system. It connects northern and southern groupings and facilitates lateral movement of reserves. If cohesion here weakens, the entire front becomes harder to manage. The diversity of Ukrainian units committed in the central sector is telling. When Ranger and airborne assault brigades are fighting alongside mechanized units and National Guard formations, it suggests that command is prioritizing immediate stabilization over long-term force preservation. That approach often leads to higher casualties and reduced unit effectiveness over time. The destruction of a Grad MLRS platform is particularly significant. Multiple launch rocket systems provide area denial and counteroffensive potential. Removing them reduces the defender's ability to disrupt maneuver and impose costs at scale. It also signals a deliberate effort to suppress Ukrainian fire's capability rather than merely trading blows.
Casualties here are again higher than in other sectors. Does that indicate a decisive axis?
It indicates a weight-bearing axis. Decisive does not always mean imminent collapse. It means that outcomes here disproportionately influence the rest of the theater. By maintaining pressure in the center, Russian forces are forcing Ukrainian command to commit valuable formations simply to hold ground, reducing flexibility elsewhere.
Colonel, the Eastern Sector briefing notes that Russian units advanced deep into Ukrainian defenses, engaging mechanized, assault, and airborne assault formations across multiple settlements, including contact areas extending into Dnipropetrovsk. What does advancing deep signal at this stage of the campaign?
Advancing deep signals the transition from contact fighting at the forward edge to exploitation beyond the first defensive belt. In operational terms, it means the defender is being forced to fight in areas intended for regrouping, lateral movement, and reserve employment. Once fighting moves into those zones, the defender's margin for recovery narrows sharply. What stands out in the eastern sector today is the volume and variety of Ukrainian formations engaged, mechanized brigades alongside assault and airborne assault units, plus multiple assault regiments. That concentration indicates Ukrainian command is attempting to preserve coherence by feeding in forces rapidly. The cost of that approach is high. When maneuver elements are committed sequentially under pressure, attrition accumulates faster than cohesion can be restored.
How significant is the extension of fighting toward Dnipropetrovsk from an operational perspective?
It expands the psychological and logistical footprint of the campaign. Even limited contact near such regions forces Ukrainian command to consider protection of additional routes, depots, and population centers. That dilutes focus and stretches sustainment. You don't need to seize everything to impose cost. You need only make the defender account for the possibility of further penetration.
The Dnipro sector reports comparatively lower casualty figures, but continued defeats of mechanized and mountain assault units. How should listeners interpret this axis?
The Dnipro sector is not about spectacle. It is about shaping. Lower casualty figures do not mean lower importance. This axis is about denying the defender freedom of movement and degrading specialized units that might otherwise be used to stabilize more pressured fronts. Mountain assault brigades are trained for difficult terrain and adaptive maneuver. When they are engaged and attrited in sectors that do not offer decisive terrain, it suggests they are being used to plug gaps rather than execute deliberate operations. That is rarely sustainable over time. Additionally, operations in the Dnipro sector influence the air and fire's environment. Even when not explicitly highlighted, actions here constrain where artillery, air defense, and electronic warfare assets can be safely positioned. That has knock-on effects for adjacent sectors, particularly the east.
Colonel, I want to treat operational tactical aviation as its own domain here, not a supporting footnote. Today's briefing opens with long-range strikes using sea and air-launched precision weapons, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, followed by sustained air and missile defense activity. How should listeners understand aviation's role on February 7th?
Aviation on February 7th is setting the terms under which everything else happens. When long-range aviation and naval strike assets engage energy infrastructure, transport nodes, and UAV production facilities, they are not simply attacking targets of opportunity. They are shaping the operational environment so that ground forces encounter an enemy who is short on mobility, constrained in sustainment, and increasingly dependent on improvisation. The use of hypersonic systems like Kins Hall is significant not because of novelty, but because of reliability and reach. These weapons are designed to hold high-value, well-protected targets at risk. When they are employed alongside UAVs and conventional precision systems, the effect is cumulative. You are overwhelming defensive planning cycles and forcing the defender to protect everything at once or accept losses.
The briefing also highlights air defense intercepting UAVs and a guided aerial bomb. Some analysts treat these numbers as routine. Why are they operationally important?
Because interception equals continuity. Every UAV intercepted is reconnaissance denied. Every guided munition intercepted is a command post, depot, or convoy that remains intact. Over time, that continuity allows ground commanders to plan deliberately rather than reactively. There's also a resource dimension. UAVs are being used in large numbers because they are essential to modern targeting loops. When hundreds are lost in a short period, the defender must either accept degraded situational awareness or divert resources to replace them. Both options impose cost.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to emphasize that this is another step in a cumulative campaign. This was not a day defined by spectacle, but by alignment. Aviation, fires, maneuver, and logistics denial were all applied in concert. That alignment is what produces strategic effect over time.
This has been Frontline Updates. Subscribe for daily military briefings and in-depth strategic analysis. Visit our platform for maps, transcripts, and exclusive Frontline updates from commanders in theater.